Today we're going to have a complete review of Squid Game Season 2, and we're going to tell you at the end what we think is going to happen in Season 3 based on director's interview and also the clues I could find in Season 1 and 2. Almost verified. If you already watched the show and you loved it, because we are going to have spoilers, let's begin. We know that Season 2 starts where it left us at the end of the Season 1, where Gi-hun is deciding to go back and stop the games to save people from being killed now. This is very important in this whole season because now they set the expectation that he's gonna do things differently, he's a different character, he's so determined and is not selfish anymore. So his character from being this gullible, funny, childlike person now has changed to this person who wants to take revenge and is strong and is even thinking about other people. I say this is important because one of the flaws to this season actually for me was that once Gi-hun was given the second chance and is redoing the game, he does everything but what we expected him to do. And I'll tell you why soon, but first let's have a look at the opening of Season 1 because it gives us a lot of information about the whole series that we need to analyze. In this scene alone, not only the name of the series, the Squid Game, is being identified, but also the rules of the game, the intention of players to win, and the main symbols of the Squid Game that we will see throughout the series, like the triangle, the square, and circle, are being shown in this very first scene. And he's mentioning when he's losing, he dies. And in Korean, it is 죽는다. That is also universal that all kids use without thinking, that when someone loses, even in a video game, we say I died, 죽었어 in Korean. And now that he's playing same kind of kid game as an adult, he sees that when he wins, his friends actually die and he cannot be happy to win anymore. This is a whole concept that makes the Squid Game quite relatable. This season in general didn't have many light funny moments and was more serious, maybe because the protagonist is now not a gullible player but a strong-willed hero. You know, like the couple on the motorbike that they interacted with the policeman, or the other couple trying to find a motel and they ended up coming to Gi-hun's door. I know that they wanted to introduce that this is his place but not adding anything to the story for me. These two scenes could definitely be used to give us more background to some of the players we see later in the game, but instead we see those one-off instances with no string to the storytelling. And in some parts of the story, I felt they were stretching it even for those 7 episodes. I don't know how you felt, although there were so many things they could tell us about the characters. And every time they went to another voting scene, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna take forever again. I know the result. That whole scene could be so much shorter and it wasn't really needed to be that long. It wasn't that they didn't have much to say, it was just that they didn't pay attention to those details. This was the point that was completely in contrast with Season 1 because Season 1 was so beautifully crafted that it didn't have any dull moments. I felt like they had so much to say. I also could live totally without the long launch scene Juno had with his supervisor and instead wanted to see a bit more about how all these years he was trying to find more clues to find his brother, because all we see is that he's taking the boat to find the island, but he is a policeman. There could be scenes on how he's trying to find more evidence and links to the government and police. I mean, isn't it suspicious why no one is taking this horrible thing seriously, even after a policeman has witnessed it? Here on the side note, I gotta say, because Juno wasn't doing his job, I had to do something. So I did some investigations and I realized the government and the higher powers definitely knew about the Squid Game. One factor is that there are legal processes in all parts of the game, such as the consent forms. Why do they need it? To make it legalized? Why? The other factor is usually when someone gets a huge amount of money in their account, bank is the first place that gets suspicious and would ask a million questions on how you got the money and what was the source. But instead we see the bankers officially offering Song Gi-hun investment options with the money in his bank account instead of being like, excuse me, where did you get the money from? This is so suspicious. Anyway, I'm going to leave the rest of the investigations to Juno and expect him to do a better job in Season 3, you know? We need to have a look at Frontman character development because the director of Squid Game in his interview mentioned this season is mainly revolving around the battle between the frontman and player 456 Gi-hun. In season 2, we see that even his brother and mom, when they're having a conversation, they actually think that he did take the bribe and that is why he was fired from his job. Juno even says whatever happened to him, he deserved it because of his wrongdoing. Season 2 also reveals a very shocking truth about this whole situation. That is where we see In-ho and Gi-hun are having a deep conversation. He starts by saying that he has a pregnant wife who is sick and needs to have a surgery. Now the shocking part is that for the first time he reveals to Gi-hun, all he did was borrowing some money for the surgery from a friend. Yet police took it the wrong way and basically accused him of bribery and fired him from his job. Now, imagine how unfair that must have felt for him, especially that he emphasized that he dedicated all his youth to this job. Apparently, he was an honorable policeman. We see the photos with the certificates and everything. Now, he's fired from his job. He's trying to save as much money as possible, but now he's also unemployed. That must have been the last dagger to his situation that made him lose all hopes in being able to do something for his wife. That is how he enters the 28th Squid Game when it is offered to him. Here, it's very important to talk about another theory, which I think at this point ain't a theory anymore. Are you ready? Because season 2 gave us enough information to come to a conclusion based on facts. That is Frontman being Oh Il-nam's son. Yes, now we have 3 proofs to back this theory. First fact, the old man mentions to Gi-hun about how his son is allergic to milk. In season 2, out of nowhere, they include a scene that shows In-ho passes the milk given to them to the pregnant girl, saying in his words, "I can't drink milk anyway. 인 우유를 못 마신다." I don't think this is a coincidence. They are definitely giving us a clue. The second proof of In-ho being the son of the mastermind behind the Squid Game is hidden in the conversation between Juno and his mom. In this scene, we get a lot of information about In-ho, and we realize that In-ho is actually Juno's stepbrother, and they are from different mothers, meaning Oh Il-nam can be the father of both Juno and In-ho, which I reckon would make things really complicated in season 3. And the third reason we have to back up this assumption is that Frontman was the closest person to Oh Il-nam, and even after his death, he's still continuing his legacy to run the games. Usually a son would take their dad's legacy, right? We still have a lot to talk about season 3 at the end of this video. Let's go back to Gi-hun's character development. We see that the director is trying to show us how he has evolved from season 1 versus season 2, because he repeats the exact same scenarios, but now he's acting completely different. For example, we see that he helps everyone at the hide and seek game to survive by using a simple strategy of hiding behind each other, but in fact his friend taught him this technique. This is the same friend that he ends up killing, by the way. The first time he played, the exact same thing happened, that someone was shot in the leg and needed his help on the field, but he kicks him away the first time because he was running out of time. However, we see in the new season, he even risks his life to save this injured person who he doesn't even know who he is. And if it wasn't for Hyunju's help, that could be the end of game for him. All that said, one thing remains the same in his character, and that is how generous he is when it comes to money. Even when he was in debt, he still wanted to buy the best gift for his daughter in season 1, if you remember. Later on, we saw him giving some pocket money to his mom from the money that he gets from salesman, and even sharing food with a stray cat in the street. So we know that he's very generous. He's also proven to be a man of integrity, and we see that when he refuses to give up on his daughter to take money from her stepdad in season 1. Am I the only one that remembers all these details, or are you still with me? We have a lot to talk about. So in season 2, his view about money, that when he has more he likes to share, is still the same. And this time he doesn't have any of those close friends or family members to share this wealth with. So instead of using the hard-earned money, he wants to use it all for the purpose of saving other players. This all shows that he always chooses the right thing to do and can be a trusted character in this series that would always do the right thing. But I think season 2 showed us a side of him that I really didn't like. I don't know, I can't trust Gi-hun's character anymore. He does stupid things now. I gotta say here that my favorite part about reviewing films or analyzing them is to talk about the meaning behind the whole story that we have here. What is justice? What is real happiness? Can we trust people's choices? Money versus entertainment. All these very cool concepts that Squid Game is trying to portray. One of the interesting points is that although once the players enter these games, everything looks chaotic and brutal, but that doesn't mean there are no rules or that they have no choice. Like, how funny is that they have even consent forms for the start of the game, which is the most dark but funny part of the whole thing, isn't it? This is where we all get frustrated, just like Gi-hun, with people's choices. As soon as they see the money coming down, they seem to forget everything and decide to stay in the game knowing what will happen to them. This is so crazy. But I also want us to think about a very important thing here, that the pink soldiers mentioning that the players die because they didn't keep the rules and that they can all be safe and go home with money. So what is the rule of the game? Wasn't it to play hard and try to win against the other players? After all, isn't that what brings the VIPs the entertainment? But apparently the mastermind behind the game had a different idea when created this environment. Could it be that they actually really wanted to test these desperate people and see if they would make the right decision when given another chance at life? Would they do things differently? That's what I picked up from watching the show. What do you think? Time to talk about the connection between the frontman and Gi-hun. Although it seems like they have nothing in common and they're absolutely opposite of each other because they're going against each other, but they do share some very deep concepts. For example, justice, which is another main point of the fight between Gi-hun and the frontman. It seems like to Gi-hun, justice is to stop the games at all costs, and to frontman, it is simply providing equal chance to these people to win and to respect their choices, even when their choices are stupid, to betting on their one and only lives. One of my favorite scenes is when Gi-hun is laying out his master plan on how to go against the people that are running the game, which is also one of the bugs of this season, that he can convince these people by this stupid plan. I don't even know why all these people who already want some money and they can go back and live a better life are suddenly part of his heroic plan willingly. You know, I was thinking instead maybe he could at least tell them there is more money in the control room or something to justify why they are suddenly all in to risk everything for him. Anyway, Gi-hun says we should allow the greedy players to attack his team while they will not try to help them and allow them to die. Wasn't he back to the game so that no one dies? And here we see frontman smiles and says, you mean sacrificing a small group for a greater cause? And Gi-hun says, yeah, exactly, that's my plan. I gotta say, Lee Byung-hun played the character perfectly, and we can basically see how stupid he thinks Gi-hun and his plan is just by looking at his small expression in this scene. He's amazing. This is why when in the last scene he goes back to his role as the frontman and wants to put everything back in order, the first thing he thinks is necessary is to give player 456 a big lesson by killing his close friend. By doing this, he tells him, you see how it feels to lose someone close to you because of your greater cause? And I love how he tells him in Korean, was it fun to play a hero game this time? 영훈 너리가 재밌었나? Mocking his whole purpose for coming back to the game and creating all this chaos. So back to the justice concept. To Gi-hun, justice is even when he has a gun, he's still being gracious and is not killing those players that tried to kill them before, but ends up causing all the good players to be killed. Now, another eye-opening scene is when they capture one of the pink guys and force him to remove his mask after killing many of the pink guys already. I think the director here intentionally chose an innocent-looking young boy that is scared and is shaking under a mask that looked very scary and brutal to us up to that point. And at the end of the day, it turns out that he's just a soldier and still a human being. But 456 is failing to even see that, and he continues with the plan. I don't know how to trust Gi-hun anymore. Basically, I think the director is trying to say if everyone wants to implement their own idea of justice, then it creates even a bigger chaos. And sometimes people that we assume are pure evil are the ones that are actually fair and just, like the frontman. Maybe not in real life. This season wasn't all masterpiece, and here I gotta say I absolutely disliked the last episode, and I felt like I'm watching another show. I didn't even feel like it was a Squid Game anymore with all the gone action scenes. Also, I think you agree the side characters weren't as interesting as season 1. The only thing that was used to create the climax of this long gone battle was that they were running out of mech. I mean, there could be so many other things to focus on. For example, how each of the characters was dealing with this whole fight. I also wanted to see that those wild, greedy people that didn't join them would do some sort of chaotic thing of their own. Like, for example, when the doors were open and they also had a chance to move around the place and have access to stuff, they could have done something, you know? Why were they instead all waiting in the room, not doing anything? This could create an interesting conflict in this whole battle. The other bug obviously was why Gi-hun wasn't being suspicious of player number 1. He had the same scenario in season 1, but he wasn't even suspicious. Also, he have heard his voice before, so he could have recognized it, but instead he's just being dumb the whole season, not knowing who he is. Let's have a look at the things I've discovered is going to happen in season 3. I have a whole list of things. We know that many of the Gi-hun's team died thanks to him in the last season, so if they vote again, the game continues, obviously. First thing is Noel. I think there are so many interesting things that is going to happen with her, and I don't think she would have killed him, so he would be alive. Maybe he goes to the pink side and become one of the soldiers, or now she would have to hide him somewhere and take care of him. So we would have so many interesting stories around these two characters. At the start, I thought she's evil for killing people for no reason, but then I realized she's actually doing them a favor. We see that the mom is not having the hairpin anymore here, so that means she must have been in a dangerous situation and have used that weapon already. And she's trying to convince Gi-hun to stop the game and Himne, you can do this. So it should be that her son is in danger somehow. The other thing I was thinking was that Frontman is running these games after Oil-nam died. So this is the first time the games are running without him. Would he go against the VIPs and do something interesting there? Because I can't believe that the Frontman can be an unjust person. He seems to be a good person, although he does evil things. What I actually could picture was that a lot of flashbacks to the Frontman's previous life. And imagine if they show us those scenes with having Fly Me to the Moon as a background music, as if like we're seeing his misery now. It would be amazing. I can totally picture that. That soundtrack has something to do with his past life, like it could be from a memory. And Hong Juno finally find a way to the island. Hooray! And that means he must have reached the Frontman's spy, the captain. And Gi-hun gets to the final game again. And if we have one game that is being repeated, that would be the last game, the Squid Game. And who else is voting that this time it would be between Gi-hun and the Frontman? Do you have a better duo match? Please comment down below. So we know that the Frontman didn't have money and that is how he loses his wife. But Oil-nam is very rich. So what if Frontman realizes that Oil-nam, who is a very rich man, is his dad, and now he has access to all his money, but now he doesn't have any use for that money because he already lost the most precious thing in his life? Wouldn't that be a similar case with what Gi-hun is going through? He has all the money, but he also doesn't have a chance to bring back his mom to life. So I think that would be interesting contrast, and I'm really looking forward to see how the Frontman story is going to unfold for us. And we finally saw what that game was from the teaser from the last season. It's Julnomgi, which is like a skipping rope, and the lyrics goes as Nugushimnika, Gomaimnika, and then it starts to say, now turn around, touch the ground, and goodbye. So in this case, they would really be like, bye-bye forever. The director must have kept changing the scenario throughout these years, so the more we guessed the ending as the audience, we made it harder for him to surprise us. But I still believe he will have surprises for us. This is all we know about Season 3 and my review of Season 2 of Squid Game. I hope you enjoyed this video and subscribe to see more videos like this. I'll see you all next time. Have a colorful day. Bye!